It's been a little bit since we've covered updates on Silent Hill. Obviously, we were talking about the revival of the series with Silent Hill 2 Remake, and the other day there was sort of an information dump from a lot of veterans on the series that I wanted to talk about that I'm actually very excited for. It has, I would say, stemmed a few of my worries, although I'm still interested to see what comes of this game, but I'm going to break it down for you and we'll talk about it here. Now, before we hop into it, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I appreciate you very much. Channel's been going through some tough times recently, so leaving a comment letting us know what you think, or supporting us in other ways like our Let's Play channel, Degenerate Plays, where we recently played through Silent Hill together, link in the description down below, or our Patreon, etc. They're very much appreciated, and thank you very much. So, hopping into this right away, there was a lot of news dropped. One of the first things that was talked about was the issues of bringing back Silent Hill in general. Producer Motoi Okamoto, and I'm going to do my best on name, pronunciation, he went on to actually talk about this a little bit and say that one of the biggest issues that the company was facing, essentially, was just how long Silent Hill had been dormant, and how many indie games and other types of horror games had come out in that time, many of which were actually influenced by Silent Hill games from the past and their lack of being released. You can look at games like Layers of Fear, and while obviously it does its own thing, that's just an example of something being kind of inspired by that level of psychological horror, the same way Silent Hill was inspired by a lot of different things as well. And so for me personally, I still feel like Konami shot themselves in the foot on this one. I don't blame Motoi Okamoto, obviously, for that. I blame Konami, because when it comes to Silent Hill and Metal Gear, regardless of people's feelings, especially on the latter half, on Metal Gear, when you're talking about maybe bringing those games back with rumors of potential remakes and other things, if you just don't release anything for a long, long time and you alienate some of the talent that had been involved in those projects and made them special, that's just not a good thing to do as a company. And I feel like Konami really could have avoided having to approach Silent Hill so carefully and be so cautious about its revival if they just hadn't let it die such a hard death in the first place. Okamoto did go on to say that he believed that they needed to redefine and solidify the brand of Silent Hill while bringing it back by differentiating the game series so that it can actually stand out from the competition. They're leaning into the psychological horror aspect of Silent Hill, which is the best aspect, so good, which is why they decided to remake Silent Hill 2 first before anything else, and they view Silent Hill 2 Remake as the center of the return of the brand of Silent Hill, meaning that this is not just some afterthought tossed to Bloober Team to get some, quick sales and get a little bit of attention. This is something that they are putting a lot of heart and soul into and effort into, because it's pretty much going to be a reflection of the return of the entire brand. If Silent Hill 2 Remake is garbage, that's going to be a really bad reflection on the return of the brand, and probably not one that Konami and the other development teams under them or around them are going to want on the image of Silent Hill. So they're being very careful with this and working very hard to make that the center of it. Masahiro Ito, many know as a Silent Hill veteran and legend, and also probably one of the nicest guys on Twitter. Seriously, follow him on Twitter if you don't. Very nice guy, very down to earth. Said that this time he was responsible for the combat design of the game, and he had actually received a lot of feedback about the design in the original Silent Hill 2. So his goal was to work on improving that combat this time around. And one of the bigger challenges he actually faced was not changing the way the monsters move and act significantly, as it seems that one of the primary goals for everybody involved is to preserve the feelings, atmosphere, and just general game that was Silent Hill 2, while also modernizing and making something for the PlayStation 5. And when I say modernizing, I don't mean, oh, we've designed it for a modern audience, so we changed absolutely everything you loved and it's not even resembling what it was. I mean modernizing more along the lines of, I would say, Final Fantasy VII Remake, where even though I adore the original game, they did find a way to bring it back and appeal very much to, the wider, newer audience of gamers while preserving what Final Fantasy VII was so far. Masahiro Ito went on to say that he tried to respect the original designs of basically the world and the monsters the best he could while adding combat that's fun and new to this remake. And this statement did remind me a lot, like I said, of Final Fantasy VII Remake from Square Enix. So if it's anything like that, I'm sure that this will be done well. I also personally don't believe that someone like Masahiro Ito would come back to the franchise that he clearly loves and is passionate about just to release something that's clunky or bad. Masahiro Ito loves Silent Hill so much that he was even on Twitter talking about Dead by Daylight's inclusion of Pyramid Head, saying that they pretty much could have used White Hunter as a killer. Now, White Hunter is a Pyramid Head, I don't want to say stand-in, but an alternate Pyramid Head in canon that was designed by Masahiro Ito for the comic included in the OST of Silent Hill Origin, the Japanese edition, because he made a Pyramid Head that was not for James originally. So it was something that he went on to create so that there could be, I guess I would say, a reason why Pyramid Head was still around, even though the original was designed for James. He went on to say, to me, if the white Pyramid Head joins Dead by Daylight as a killer, it's more than welcome because I designed that for such a use. And he went on to talk about that because the original Pyramid Head was a character he designed for James, and that he actually designed White Hunter to avoid the abuse so that it could be used in other things instead of just overusing Pyramid Head himself. So this is a guy that actually really clearly does care about everything going on with Silent Hill as a brand, even before he was back to being involved with it. The topic of Bluebird Team did come up in this deep dive, and I personally noticed online that a lot of the concern around Silent Hill 2's remake involves Bluebird Team. A lot of people feel that they have not proven themselves able to handle something like Silent Hill. However, Okamoto mentioned that the team is not looking to add tons of new enemies or change all kinds of things, but instead work on small design elements, AI, and refining the game for modern releases. Now, the game will mostly look the same in many ways as it did in terms of its atmosphere, not graphics, but under the hood, it does a good job of being modernized to not be clunky on the modern hardware. He also went on to state that the developers have so much respect for the original Silent Hill 2 that he almost felt that they were being excessive during development, and I believe that that's a really good sign so far for this game. Series veteran Akira Yamaoka, who is widely known for his sound work on the Silent Hill series, is focusing very hard on recreating the music of the original game and not just porting it over or dragging and dropping it in lazily, or even just running it through sort of a modern remaster. He is painstakingly remaking the music of Silent Hill 2 to fit the modern game. He also said that he's trying to maintain the elements that made the music so great and that resonate with people in the original Silent Hill 2, even putting aside some of his own feelings as a music composer about the music design. Now, when we talk about his feelings, he did say that now that he's further in his career, there are certain things in music he's a little tired of, like the idea of having to have an acoustic, orchestral, and normal version of a given song, but that despite his own feelings, he wants to maintain the things that made the music in the original Silent Hill 2 resonate with fans in the game. This is probably one of the things I respected the most from this deep dive, because often when we see these projects where people return to something from the past or they get the keys to a car that they didn't make. Now, I will say Yamaoka did help make the original Silent Hill 2 with the music, but my point is a lot of times when we see people revisit an older brand or a remake or things like that, they feel like they need to make it theirs in terms of changing everything that made the original good and just making it about them as the creator. So to see him actually talk about this and say that that was not his intention, I really, really respected that, because I think that'll help them avoid ruining what made Silent Hill 2 good in the first place. And I think often when it comes to remakes, frustratingly, or reboots, people who are in charge of them don't really seem to understand why the thing was good. They just want to bank off of the name. So to see Yamaoka say that that's not their intention, that he's painstakingly going through and recreating all of this and making it match this game, I thought was really, really cool. One big interesting change to this game that I've seen a lot of people mention is James Sunderland's age. Now, the way the internet actually talks about it, you'd think that they raised his age by like 45 years, but in terms of the game, they just raised his age a little bit from where it was in Silent Hill 2. And there are several reasons for that. The first is that fans of the original game are older, and the team felt that it was a way to kind of respectfully help the game connect more with those fans who played the game originally. So I think that that's actually cool to think of them in a way when designing this game. And also the average age of people who play video games has risen a lot since the original game came out. Video games used to be seen as sort of just a toy or a throwaway hobby for kids and teenagers, and that once you got older, you should kind of be done with that and move on to very serious things, you know? Kind of like the old generations thought that you just couldn't have fun when you got older. And now that's an attitude that I think has mostly gone away in most countries, at least with people under the age of 50. So for the most part, they are right about that, and I think it's an interesting decision that's not going to affect the game negatively to change his age by a little bit. One of their goals was to depict a James Sunderland who has had to suffer more time through his life as an adult, which I think fits into the canon of the character very well. And if you look at James in the original game, his age was already up for debate. In certain cutscenes, he looked much older than he was supposed to be, and in others, he looked very young because of, as they went on to say, the issues of differentiating skin age in the PlayStation 2 era, because some characters would end up looking younger or a different age due to having very smooth skin compared to the age that they should be. You even see a difference, I would say, in how Silent Hill 2 and 3 look, whereas Heather is much more detailed, and you can kind of tell some of that aging stuff is starting to get figured out in game development. And in Silent Hill 2, James is not nearly as detailed because there was a handful of years separating those games. So as technology has gotten better, of course the ability to depict age will get better as well. The panel also focused on the goals of the game, and one of the goals of the newer graphics was to help create more immersion in the game, as video game graphics getting more clear does make it so that players don't necessarily have to fill in all the gaps that the technology was limiting. I thought that was kind of an interesting statement, and while I am somebody who loves old games and does not mind old graphics at all, I really don't, it is true that there are limitations of every age, so it's going to be interesting to see what this game does now that the limitations of the PS2 era are no longer the boundaries that the game developers have to work with. Now, speaking of those boundaries, they did choose to develop this game only for PS5 and not 4 because they believed that the limitations of the 5 allowed the game to operate in 4K and be scarier and more immersive in terms of its atmosphere. Now, while I am someone who is annoyed by the distribution issues the PS5 has faced for its entire life, with many players still wanting one and not having one, and not wanting to pay resellers $100 to $300 more than they are worth on MSRP, I do think that this was probably a good choice to actually focus on PS5 because this situation warranted it. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, Jay, you were upset about Gotham Knights. And yeah, you're absolutely right. One of my biggest issues with that game was that it was promised to release on the last gen hardware like the Xbox One and the PS4, but it never did. So if a development team just doesn't want to make a game for that, and they're straightforward and honest about it in order to make what they believe is the best game possible, I'm actually completely fine with that. Where I don't like it is a situation like Gotham Knights, where all of a sudden the rug's pulled out from under thousands of players who were expecting to buy the game and now they just can't. I think it's good that they clarified this early on, and they're being clear when it comes to Silent Hill 2 and its development. Akira Yamaoka went on to say that he hopes the series continues long after the remake of Silent Hill 2, and that he's a big fan of the franchise. Now, at the same time, Masahiro Ito said that he's actually unsure about what the future of the franchise will hold, but that's also the feeling that was there between Silent Hill 1 and 2's release. They didn't really know right away where to take it, kind of figuring that out later on. There was one statement to kind of wrap this up that I really appreciated that was from Okamoto, who said that even though they had to keep the revival of Silent Hill 2 secret until recently, he hopes that Silent Hill lovers around the world will bring their pitches to Konami, as he's very excited to see what people think of the franchise and where it could go and what the future of the franchise will be, because they are committed to this being a series revival, meaning it won't just be a drop in the bucket in history where they bring back a couple of games in a row and then the series goes dormant again and they drop off and disappear. This is a full-on revival to bring back Silent Hill, and it sounds like, at least for the foreseeable future, they want to bring it back to stay, not as a temporary thing. So that's really, really cool to see. This also does kind of make you ask questions, on where things are going. So for example, I'm not sure what will happen with Metal Gear. Obviously, it would be very hard to get Hideo Kojima back now, especially because he was pretty much done with the franchise anyway after Metal Gear Solid 5. But there is always room for those remakes. I would just want them to be very faithful. I know a lot of people have differing opinions on that, so let me know what you think in the comments down below and what you think about this deep dive. It sounds to me like they're doing their best to respect Silent Hill 2 and make a game that is in the spirit of that very, very well. It does actually sound like it's going to be a very good game, but again, we'll have to wait and see what happens when it releases. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I appreciate you very, very, very much. Again, Let's Play channel Degenerate Plays is in the link down below. We just played through Silent Hill. We're now playing through Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and Gotham Knights and some other stuff, so look forward to seeing you there. And if you do want to help support the channel in other ways, we do have a Patreon where there's a lot of exclusive videos and content, a membership over on Degenerate Plays, and my wonderful wife Jill actually has a store herself, which is degeneratejstore.com or enchantedglamour.com, GLAMOR, where she actually makes resin pieces that are really, really cool out of repurposed comic book pages from comic books that were being thrown out or discarded in our area at local shops and other places. And of course, wonderful, fine, handcrafted jewelry. So I'm excited to see you over there as well. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic day. And as always, everyone, stay shui.